Spoilers.
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 Spoilers. Spoilers. Spoilers. I like that word.
I thought you might.
Hello everyone and welcome to another Fan Theories. So Midnight is one of my favourite new series stories, mainly because of the horror element it possesses, in that we never actually get to find out what the entity in question was. As such, this leaves it completely open to interpretation, so I've decided to come up with my own theory about what it could be. Now obviously with my theories I like to try and fit them into what we do know and what is said in the narrative canon on screen. However, as so little is actually known about the Midnight entity, this is going to be one of these theories where the majority of it is going to be made up of pure speculation and ideas on my part, but I've tried to make it something that could be believable within the narrative universe of Doctor Who. So I think the Midnight entity is in fact the last of its kind, wiped out during the Time War, which turned Midnight into the planet you see today. As the Time War is known to have caused devastation to countless planets and races, with even the Doctor not knowing how far the consequences of the Time War extended, and as some races, such as the Zygons, were known to have survived the destruction of their planets during the Time War.
The Zygons lost their own world. It burnt in the first days of the Time War.
It's not inconceivable to believe that Midnight and its native race could in fact also be one of these planets similarly affected. Many planets affected by the Time War were described as being burnt. So maybe Midnight's sun was changed by the Time War, thus leading it to giving off excess amounts of extonic radiation. And in turn, the immense heat from the sun and pressure from another force, perhaps the effects of a Time War weapon, have turned Midnight into the diamond planet it has been seen to become. So what about the Midnight entity itself? Well, given that the Midnight entity seems somewhat to possess the ability to get into people's minds, I put forth the idea that what if its intended victim was always the Doctor? Sensing the presence of a Time Lord on Midnight, the entity sets out to take revenge against the last of the Time Lords for what they did to their planet and their race. And assuming that the original / surviving form of the Midnight entity was indeed just a incorporeal / shadowy figure, then it's logical to assume that when she was ejected, Skye Silvestri's body was destroyed. But perhaps the Midnight entity still exists, out there on Midnight, waiting for another chance. And as the Doctor himself even admits, he has no idea what the entity was, or what even indeed transpired on Midnight.
What do you think it was?
No idea.
Do you think it's still out there?
So it could always be possible that maybe one day the Doctor will make the mistake of going back to find out. So again, just to reiterate, this theory is purely ideas, speculation and conjecture on my part. But as the identity / nature and history of Midnight and its entity is a completely blank slate, well, anything's possible. Now, as a final side note to this theory, I'd just like to address another popular fan idea, which is that the entity in Midnight and the one in Listen are one and the same. Now, this is an idea that a lot of people like to believe, but to me, it seems unlikely. Firstly, as previously mentioned, the evidence that is known about the Midnight entity suggests that it is an incorporeal / shadowy figure of consciousness alone. This means it probably doesn't have enough force to hold up a bedsheet unless it possessed a child, which I will admit is a possibility. However, secondly, and more importantly, where this theory falls down is the simple question of why? Why would an incorporeal being capable of taking over people's bodies and minds travel millions of miles across space, not to mention through time, to hide under a bedsheet? And more to the point, how did it travel through space and time if it was just an incorporeal shadowy figure on a deserted planet? I think the reason people have put these two unknown beings together is just that. They are unknown. Therefore, people assume that they have to be one and the same. Just like how every new series Black Dalek that appears in the new series now has to be Dalek Sec just because they've got the same colour of their casing, and also their serial number underneath their eye stalk is the same, although the latter one is just a production oversight. Now, I know this might sound very hypocritical given that I have just said that everything in my preceding theory is pure speculation on my part, but when it comes to linking two random enemies together simply because they share one or two similar properties, if there's nothing in the narrative to actually suggest this, then don't assume that that is the case within the official narrative canon. This is why when it comes to my theories, I like to think of things that whilst they may not be part of the official narrative canon, I like to structure them around the narrative and try and fit them into what we do know. And if I have to make assumptions, I try to make them at least logical ones that make sense within the Doctor Who universe. But that brings to a close another fan theories. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot, and be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. I'm doing my very first figure animation and you can get involved. There is exclusive content and rewards for those who do so, and supporting my Patreon in any way gets your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.